Dominic Russo hit the brake so smoothly the black sedan barely dipped. The white lines of the crosswalk glowed under the streetlights, and for a split second, everything outside his windshield looked ordinary. Late afternoon traffic, a cold breeze pushing scraps of paper along the curb, a couple arguing softly on the corner. Then she stepped off the sidewalk. Evelyn Carter. Not a look-alike, not a memory playing tricks. It was her. Hair a little longer, a little darker at the ends, pulled back in a low ponytail like she had somewhere to be and no time to impress anyone. A camel coat hugged her shoulders. Her cheeks were pink from the wind, and her hand, her left hand, rested on her belly in a way that made Dominic's lungs forget how to work. Pregnant. His body reacted before his mind could argue. His pulse slammed. His palms tightened on the steering wheel. The world narrowed until there was only the crosswalk and the woman he had once sworn he would never lose. Evelyn looked up. Their eyes collided through the glass like a hit he didn't see coming. Her steps didn't stop, but something in her face did. An instant of shock, then a calm that was too controlled to be real, like she'd trained herself for pain and refused to let it show. Dominic didn't move. He couldn't. Because in that moment, he wasn't the man everyone feared. He wasn't the boss with the city at his fingertips. He was just a husband who had signed divorce papers months ago and was now watching his ex-wife carry a child that his instincts recognized like a brand. His. Evelyn kept walking. Her boots clicked softly on pavement. 1 step, 2, 3. Dominic's throat went tight. 1,000 questions rose at once. Why didn't you tell me? How far along? Are you alone? Is it mine? But the last one wasn't a question. It was a knowing that hit him so deep it felt physical. Evelyn reached the far curb. She didn't hesitate. She didn't look back. She slipped into the flow of people on the sidewalk like she could disappear through sheer force of will. Dominic's foot hovered above the gas. His entire body screamed, "Go after her." His pride hissed, "Don't you dare." His heart, quieter and meaner, said, "If you let her walk away again, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." The light changed. Drivers behind him tapped horns, impatient. Dominic didn't care. He pulled over at the first opening, parked like a man who didn't know how to do anything slowly, and got out. Cold air slapped his face. He didn't feel it. He looked down the sidewalk. Evelyn was already farther than he expected, moving with purpose, one hand still protective at her belly like a secret she refused to share. "Evelyn!" His voice came out rough. She didn't turn. Dominic started walking, long strides cutting through pedestrians with the kind of presence that made people move without understanding why. He wasn't pushing. He wasn't threatening. He simply existed, and the sidewalk opened for him. He was almost close enough to touch her coat when she finally stopped. Not because he called her name, because someone bumped into her from behind, a guy staring at his phone. Evelyn stumbled, caught herself fast, and Dominic's hand shot out on instinct, hovering near her waist without making contact, like his body refused to risk jarring her. The guy mumbled, "Sorry," and moved on. Evelyn steadied her breath. Then she turned, slowly, like she was choosing her posture with care. Her eyes met Dominic's again. Closer now, no glass between them. He expected anger. He expected tears. What he saw instead was a cool, polite expression, like he was a stranger who had said hello at the wrong time. "Dominic," she said. Just his name. Nothing else. The way she said it cut worse than shouting. It told him she had practiced being okay without him. Dominic looked at her belly. He hated himself for it, but he couldn't help it. Evelyn's hand shifted, a subtle move, as if to block him from staring too long. "Don't." "Don't what?" he asked, his voice lower. "Look." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Don't do this in the street." "I didn't plan this," he said. He stopped, because saying "I didn't plan to see you pregnant with my kid on a random Tuesday" sounded insane even in his head. Evelyn glanced around. People were passing, not paying attention, but Dominic knew how fast attention could turn into stories. "Move," she said, firm. "Walk with me." It wasn't an invitation. It was a command dressed in a calm voice. Dominic fell in beside her, matching her pace without crowding her. The old instinct to shield her from sidewalk chaos came back instantly. He didn't touch her, but he positioned himself to her left, between her and the street, like he had done 100 times when they were married. Evelyn noticed. Of course she did. Her mouth twitched like she was annoyed at herself for noticing. They walked in silence for a few steps. Dominic's mind was a storm, but he chose one thing at a time. "How far along?" he asked. Evelyn didn't answer immediately. Her gaze stayed forward. "Far enough." Dominic exhaled sharply. He wanted to laugh at the ridiculousness of that answer, but his chest was too tight. "Evelyn, you don't get to say my name like we're anything," she replied. "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you mean. It always is." He bit back the urge to argue. Months ago, the last time they spoke, arguing had turned into something sharp and ugly. Papers. Signatures. A clean ending that had never felt clean. Dominic swallowed. "Is it mine?" Evelyn stopped so suddenly Dominic almost stepped into her. She turned her face up to him, and for the first time her calm cracked, just a hairline fracture in her eyes that told him the question was a punch. Then she did something he didn't expect. She smiled, not warm, not friendly. A small, tight smile that said, "Of course you'd ask that." "Do you really think I'd let some random guy touch me?" she asked quietly. Dominic's breath caught. His jealousy flared hot and stupid, even though he had no right to it. Evelyn's smile vanished. "But don't mistake that for an invitation to claim anything." Dominic stared at her, helplessly focused on her lips, the curve he knew too well. "Evelyn, I'm not trying to—" "You're trying to control," she cut in. "I'm trying to understand." "Understanding is what you want now?" Her voice stayed soft, but every word hit like a clean slap. "After you signed your name and walked out like it was a business deal?" Dominic's throat moved. It wasn't a business deal. It felt like one. He clenched his jaw. He remembered that day too clearly, her eyes glassy but proud, his own hands steady even while his insides caved in. He had told himself it was better, safer, cleaner. He had told himself a lot of things. Evelyn started walking again. Dominic followed. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Home." Dominic's gaze flicked to her belly again, and this time she didn't block him. "Alone?" he asked, and he hated how personal it sounded. Evelyn hesitated. "Yes." That single word set something off inside him. Not anger, not possessiveness, protectiveness. It was instant, unreasonable, and absolute. Dominic didn't slow. "Then I'm walking you there." Evelyn let out a short laugh that surprised him. It was humor, but with a bite. "You can't just decide that." "I can decide whatever I want," Dominic said automatically. Evelyn stopped again and faced him. "There he is." Dominic blinked. "The man who thinks his decisions are the universe," she said, voice calm. "You want to walk me home? Fine. But you will not raise your voice, you will not send anyone after me, and you will not act like my body is a territory you're taking back." Dominic held her gaze. Her eyes were the same as always, soft brown, but not soft in spirit. She wasn't fragile. She had never been. He nodded once. "Okay." Evelyn looked suspicious, like she didn't trust agreement that came so easily. Dominic couldn't blame her. They walked again, side by side. The city noise wrapped around them. Cars, distant sirens, a dog barking from a balcony. A few blocks later, Evelyn glanced at him. "How did you even end up on that street?" Dominic's mouth tightened. "I was driving." "That's not an answer." Dominic almost smiled. That line was familiar. Evelyn had always hated vague answers. She had once said it was like living with a man who could negotiate anything except his own feelings. He looked ahead. "I had a meeting." "With who?" He hesitated, then decided to keep it simple. "A contractor. For a new property." Evelyn hummed like she didn't care, but her eyes flicked to him again. "So you're building something?" Dominic heard the subtext. You're always building, always expanding, always moving forward. Did you ever stop to think about what you broke? He swallowed and kept his voice even. What about you? Evelyn didn't look at him. What about me? Are you working? He asked. Evelyn's lips pressed together. Yes. What? She gave him a look like he was asking for her social security number. I'm not telling you everything. Dominic's fingers flexed. I'm not trying to interrogate you. You don't know how to talk without it sounding like you're making a file. That stung because it was true. Dominic slowed half a step. Evelyn, he said quietly, I'm trying to do this right. She glanced over. There is no right. That's not... Evelyn lifted her chin. Dominic, you're not here because you suddenly became a different man. You're here because you saw my belly and your brain went into emergency mode. Dominic didn't deny it. Evelyn exhaled, and for a second she looked tired. Not weak, just exhausted from carrying everything alone. I don't need emergency mode, I need peace. Dominic's voice softened. Are you at peace? Evelyn's steps slowed. She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, More than I was. That hit him like a bruise. They turned onto a quieter street lined with older buildings. A small coffee shop on the corner had fogged windows and a chalkboard sign outside that said, Hot chocolate today in crooked letters. Evelyn stopped in front of it. Dominic looked at her. Why are we stopping? Evelyn pointed at the sign with a faint smirk. Because I want hot chocolate. Dominic blinked. Now? Yes, now. Evelyn, She lifted a brow. Oh, don't start. It's not whiskey. It's not illegal. It's chocolate. Dominic opened his mouth, closed it, then let out a breath that was almost a laugh. You were never like this. Evelyn's smile was quick. Pregnancy is humbling. I cried yesterday because a commercial had a puppy. Dominic stared. You cried because of a puppy. Evelyn nodded like it was serious. A very determined puppy. He tried not to smile. Failed. Evelyn studied his expression, and something in her face shifted, like she was reminded of how easy it used to be to pull warmth out of him when no one else could. Then her guard returned. She pushed the door open. Warmth washed over them. The place smelled like espresso and cinnamon. A couple sat at a table near the window sharing a pastry. A teenage barista behind the counter looked up with the bored confidence of someone who had seen everything. Her gaze landed on Dominic. Her eyes widened. Dominic felt it instantly. Recognition. Not of him exactly, but of what he represented. Money, power, danger, some story she'd heard from someone's cousin. Evelyn noticed too. She stepped closer to Dominic, not touching him, but putting herself between him and the girl's fear. Dominic's throat tightened again. Evelyn walked to the counter. Hot chocolate, she said. Then, after a beat, with extra whipped cream. The barista blinked. Sure. Evelyn glanced at Dominic. You want anything? Dominic looked at her like the question itself was too intimate. No. Evelyn tilted her head. You sure? Because you look like you need something. Dominic's eyes slid down to her mouth again before he could stop them. I do, he said, voice low. Evelyn went still. The barista cleared her throat loudly like she was suddenly very interested in the cash register. Evelyn's cheeks flushed. Dominic, she warned, but her voice had softened. He forced himself to look away. He didn't want to push. He didn't want to break what little thread she'd allowed. Evelyn paid with a card Dominic recognized, hers, not his, not a shared account. That small detail hit harder than he expected. They moved to a table in the corner. Dominic sat across from her, his long frame too big for the small chair. He looked like he didn't belong in a cozy coffee shop full of soft lighting and indie music. Evelyn did. She wrapped her hands around the mug when it came, inhaled deeply, and closed her eyes for a second like she was taking comfort seriously. Dominic watched her. He watched the way her coat opened slightly to reveal a simple sweater beneath, the way her necklace chain rested against her throat, the way she held the mug like it was a small piece of safety. What? she asked without opening her eyes. Dominic blinked. Nothing. Evelyn opened one eye. That's a lie. Dominic leaned back slightly. You always knew. Evelyn opened both eyes and met his. I always had to. Dominic swallowed. Why didn't you tell me? Evelyn's hands tightened on the mug. Because the divorce was the first time in years I watched you choose something I didn't beg for. Dominic's chest tightened. I never wanted you to beg. Evelyn's laugh was soft and bitter. But you wanted me to wait, to be patient, to be understanding, to be the good wife who smiled at events and didn't ask why her husband kept leaving the room when his phone buzzed. Dominic held still. I wasn't cheating. I didn't say you were. Her eyes stayed on his like she was daring him to deny what she meant. Dominic exhaled slowly. I was trying to keep you safe. Evelyn's lips pressed together. There it is. What? The word you use when you don't want to say the real thing. Dominic's voice dropped. What's the real thing? Evelyn leaned forward slightly. That you didn't trust me enough to let me stand beside you as your equal. Dominic stared at her. That was the truth that had haunted him for years, the one he had buried under meetings and rules and silence. He didn't argue. Evelyn took a sip of hot chocolate. The whipped cream touched her upper lip. She wiped it with her thumb, then froze like she realized how domestic the gesture looked. Dominic's gaze tracked the motion. His throat went tight. Evelyn noticed. Her cheeks flushed deeper. Don't. Dominic held her gaze. I'm not doing anything. You're doing that thing, she said softly. What thing? That look, she murmured, like you remember what my skin feels like. Dominic didn't blink. I do. Silence stretched between them, thick and charged. Evelyn looked down at her mug. This isn't going to happen, she said, quieter. Dominic's voice was steady. What isn't? Us, she said. Not like before. Dominic leaned forward, elbows on the table, careful not to invade her space. Then not like before, like now. Evelyn's eyes lifted, cautious. You talk like you can rewrite months of reality in one sentence. Dominic's jaw tightened. I'm not trying to rewrite, I'm trying to show up. Evelyn studied him like she was searching for the trick. Why? Dominic's answer came too fast. Because I love you. Evelyn's breath caught. The words hung there, simple and dangerous. Evelyn's eyes glistened, but she blinked hard, pushing it down. You can't just say that. Dominic's voice went even softer. I can. I should have before. Evelyn swallowed. She looked away toward the window, pretending to watch people walk by. Her reflection faintly trembled on the glass. You don't get to make this romantic, she said. Dominic's mouth curved slightly, just enough to make her glance back. Evelyn, you're drinking hot chocolate with extra whipped cream. The romance is happening whether you allow it or not. Evelyn stared at him. Then, against her will, she laughed. A real laugh. Short, surprised, like it escaped. Dominic felt warmth spread through his chest, the kind he hadn't felt in months. Evelyn shook her head, still smiling faintly. You're impossible. Dominic's eyes held hers. So are you. Her smile faded slowly as the weight returned. I'm not joking, Dominic. I'm not either. Evelyn's fingers traced the mug's handle. You can't just step back into my life because you saw me on a crosswalk. Dominic nodded once. You're right. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, suspicious again. So, what are you going to do? Dominic's voice was calm. Whatever you let me. Evelyn stared at him. Her face softened, then hardened again like she was fighting herself. I don't want your people watching me, she said. Dominic didn't answer immediately, because the truth was, the moment he saw her, his protective machine had turned on. He had already considered it. He had already texted someone in his head. He kept his face neutral. You won't have them. Evelyn's gaze sharpened like she could sense lies the way other people sensed weather. Promise. Dominic held her eyes. Promise. Evelyn exhaled. Okay. The way she said it was not trust. It was a test. Dominic accepted it. They left the coffee shop a few minutes later. The wind had picked up. Evelyn pulled her coat tighter. Dominic walked beside her again. This time he offered his arm without a word, an old habit. He didn't expect her to take it. Evelyn looked at his arm, then at his face. For a moment, something tender flickered. Then she didn't take it, but she moved half an inch closer. It was small. It was everything. They reached a modest building with a narrow lobby. Evelyn stopped at the front door and pulled keys from her bag. Dominic looked up at the windows, then back at her. "You live here?" "Yes." Dominic's jaw tightened, not in judgment, but in pain. He remembered the penthouse she used to wake up in, the silk sheets, the view, the security. He remembered her laughing in his kitchen while she made pancakes like she didn't care what kind of man he was outside those walls. Now she stood in front of a simple door with a simple key, alone. Evelyn unlocked it, then paused with her hand on the handle. "You're not coming in." Dominic nodded. "I know." Evelyn didn't move. She looked at him, and for the first time since he saw her in the crosswalk, her eyes softened without turning cold again. "Dominic," she said quietly, "I'm not your problem to fix." Dominic's voice was low. "You're not a problem." Evelyn's throat moved. She looked down at her belly, then back up. This baby is not a tool." Dominic's expression tightened. "I would never." "I know," she whispered, and that was what made it worse, because she believed him, and still she was scared. Dominic stepped closer, stopping at a respectful distance. "Tell me what you need." Evelyn's lips parted, like she almost said something honest. Then she shook her head. "I need you to leave." Dominic held her gaze. He wanted to argue, to plead, to promise her the universe. Instead, he nodded once. "Okay." Evelyn blinked, surprised. "Okay?" Dominic's eyes stayed on hers. "I'm not going to force you." Her shoulders loosened slightly, like she had been bracing for a fight that didn't come. Evelyn opened the door and stepped inside, then turned back one last time. "Don't follow me," she said softly, like it mattered. Dominic's voice was gentle. "I won't." Evelyn hesitated, then closed the door. Dominic stood in the hallway for a long moment, staring at the wood like it could talk. His phone vibrated in his pocket. He didn't look at it yet. He listened to the building, the faint hum of the lights, the distant footsteps above, the muffled city outside. Then he pulled the phone out. A message notification popped up from his head of security. "Boss, you want me to pull info on Evelyn Carter's address and schedule?" Dominic's thumb hovered over the screen. He had just promised her. But he was Dominic Russo, and a man like him didn't survive by trusting the world to be kind. He stared at the message, jaw tight, and realized he was standing at the first real test, whether he would protect her the way he wanted, or the way she demanded. His thumb moved. And before he could stop himself, another thought hit him harder than any fear. If she had hidden the pregnancy from him, what else had she been forced to hide? And why did his gut tell him she wasn't just alone? She was being careful. About someone. Dominic didn't sleep. He lay on his back in a dark bedroom that felt too big, staring at the ceiling like it had answers. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the crosswalk again, Evelyn's coat, her steady steps, the curve of her belly, the way her voice stayed calm while her eyes begged him not to make it worse, and then the door closing. He had promised her he wouldn't follow, so he didn't, but a promise didn't erase instinct. His phone sat on the nightstand, screen glowing faintly with the message from his security chief. Dominic read it again, jaw tight. "Boss, you want me to pull info on Evelyn Carter's address and schedule?" He didn't like the question. He liked even less that it had already been asked, meaning his world assumed he would say yes. He typed, then deleted. Typed again. Finally he sent, "No, not without her consent." A second later, another message came in. "Understood, but you saw what I saw, right?" She looked like she's been watching her back. Dominic stared at the screen, his chest tightened. He had felt it too. The way Evelyn's eyes scanned the street without seeming to. The way she positioned her body near the coffee shop window like she wanted to see outside. The way she said, "Don't do this in the street," like someone might recognize him and her too easily. Dominic locked the phone and set it face down. He wasn't going to break the promise, but he also wasn't going to pretend he didn't care. By morning, his decision was simple. Show up in a way that didn't suffocate her. Which meant no black SUVs lined up outside her building. No men in earpieces, no pressure, just him. He chose a jacket that looked normal, no suit, no tie, nothing that screamed power. He hated how that alone made him feel exposed. He drove himself, parked a full block away from the building she'd entered, and walked the rest of the distance like a man trying to relearn how to be human. The air was colder than the day before. The sidewalk was wet from overnight rain. Dominic kept his hands in his pockets so he wouldn't reach for his phone and do something stupid. He stood across the street and looked at the building again. Modest, quiet, no doorman, no gates. Evelyn lived there. Alone. His stomach tightened. He waited 10 minutes, then 15. He didn't know what he expected. Her stepping out, surprised to see him, softening, letting him try. Instead, a woman walked a dog. A delivery guy hauled boxes inside. A couple laughed as they climbed the steps, coffee cups in hand. Normal life, a life Evelyn had chosen without him. Dominic took a slow breath. He crossed the street and approached the entrance. Before he could reach the door, it opened. Evelyn stepped out. She froze the second she saw him. Dominic stopped too, hands still in his pockets, like he was trying to prove he wasn't a threat. Evelyn's eyes traveled over him. Clothes, posture, expression, like she was checking for traps. "You said you wouldn't follow me," she said. Dominic's voice stayed calm. "I didn't." Evelyn's brows lifted. "You're standing in front of my building." "I came back," he said. "That's different." Evelyn stared like she couldn't decide whether to laugh or throw something at him. "That's the same thing with better vocabulary." Dominic's mouth twitched. "I'm trying." Evelyn's gaze dropped to his hands, then to his face again. "What do you want, Dominic?" The question was simple. The answer wasn't. He could say, "I want you back." He could say, "I want my child." He could say, "I want to fix what I broke." Instead, he said the truth that mattered most. "I want to talk, somewhere you feel safe." Evelyn's lips pressed together. Her shoulders were tense, but she didn't turn away. She looked tired in a way that made him want to hold her, not because she needed saving, but because no one should carry that much alone. "I'm going to work," she said. Dominic nodded. "Where?" Evelyn's eyes narrowed again. "No." Dominic exhaled slowly, accepting it. "Okay, then, can I drive you?" Evelyn let out a short sound that was half laugh, half disbelief. "Are you auditioning to be a normal ex-husband today?" Dominic's tone stayed steady. "I'm auditioning to be useful." Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. Then her gaze drifted to the street, to passing cars, to the corner. When she looked back, her expression had shifted, less defensive, more practical. "No," she said, "but you can walk with me to the corner. That's it." Dominic nodded like that was an honor. "Okay." They started walking. Evelyn kept her pace brisk. Dominic matched it, staying close enough to be present, but not close enough to crowd her. After a block, Evelyn said, "You look weird." Dominic blinked. "Weird? You?" she said, gesturing at his clothes. No suit, no polished Mafia king of the city costume. Dominic almost smiled. "Is that what you think I dress like?" Evelyn's eyes flicked to him. "That's what you are." Dominic's chest tightened. "I'm just a man." Evelyn gave him a look that could have cut steel. "Dominic Russo, you're a lot of things. Just isn't one of them." He wanted to tell her she used to be the only place he felt ordinary. He didn't. He kept it simple. "I didn't want to scare you." Evelyn's gaze softened for half a second, then hardened again like she hated the softness. "You don't scare me." Dominic's voice dropped. "Then why did you tell me not to do it in the street?" Evelyn's steps slowed. She didn't answer right away. Dominic didn't push. He waited. Finally, Evelyn said, "Because people talk." Dominic's jaw tightened. About me. About you, she agreed. About anyone near you. Dominic felt heat rise in his chest. Who's talking about you? Evelyn's eyes slid away. No one. Dominic didn't believe her. They reached the corner. A bus stop sat beneath a metal awning. A few people waited, staring at phones, sipping coffee. Evelyn stopped. That's it, she said, like a line drawn in concrete. Dominic nodded. Okay. Evelyn shifted her weight, hand brushing her belly. The motion was automatic, protective. Dominic's voice softened. Are you eating? Evelyn blinked, thrown by the question. What? Are you eating enough? He asked, serious. You look. Don't, she cut in, but her voice wasn't sharp. It was tired. Don't start acting like you're my what? Dominic asked quietly. My wife? Evelyn's throat moved. She looked at him, and for a second, Dominic saw the woman he married, the one who used to melt when he said her name softly in the dark. Then she blinked and the walls went back up. You're not my husband, she said. Dominic nodded. I know. Evelyn's eyes searched his face like she expected him to argue. When he didn't, her expression faltered. A bus pulled up. Doors hissed open. Evelyn stepped toward it, then paused. Dominic held still. She turned her head slightly, not fully facing him. Don't show up again. Dominic's chest tightened. Evelyn, I mean it, she said, finally looking at him. Her eyes were shiny, but her voice stayed steady. Not because I hate you, because if you show up, it gets complicated. Dominic's voice was low. It already is. Evelyn's lips trembled. She hit it fast. Goodbye, Dominic. She got on the bus. Dominic stood on the sidewalk, watching through the window as she moved down the aisle and sat near the middle, facing forward. She didn't look back. The bus pulled away. Dominic stayed there long after it disappeared around the corner, hands clenched in his pockets, jaw tight. Then he did something he hadn't done in months. He called his sister. Gia Russo answered on the second ring. If this is about money, I swear to God, Dominic, It's Evelyn, Dominic said. Silence. Then Gia's voice softened instantly. What about her? I saw her yesterday, Dominic said. The words still felt unreal. She's pregnant. Another silence, heavier. Gia exhaled. Dominic. It's mine, he said, voice rough. Gia didn't argue. She didn't ask if he was sure. She knew him too well. Oh, she whispered. Oh, Dominic. He closed his eyes. She didn't tell me. Gia's tone sharpened. Then something happened. Dominic's jaw tightened. What do you mean? Gia sighed. Evelyn doesn't hide things for fun. If she hid a pregnancy, it's because she thought it was safer. Dominic's stomach turned. Safer from what? Gia hesitated. From your world. Dominic opened his eyes, staring at the wet sidewalk like it could explain. Gia continued carefully. When you two divorced, she came to my place once. Dominic's head snapped up. She did? Yes, Gia said. She didn't want you to know. She asked me not to tell you. Dominic's throat tightened. What did she say? She didn't say much, Gia admitted. But she looked like she'd been holding her breath for months. And she asked me one question. Dominic's voice went low. What question? Gia swallowed. She asked if you had ever put your name on anything that could follow her. Dominic's blood ran cold. Follow her? Gia's voice was quiet. Like paperwork, associations, people, enemies. She didn't use those words, but that's what she meant. Dominic's grip tightened around his phone. Gia, tell me everything. I don't have everything, Gia said. She left quickly, but before she walked out, she said something else. Dominic's heart hammered. What? Gia hesitated, like she didn't want to set fire to his world with one sentence. Then she said it anyway. She said, if he ever finds out, he'll try to fix it, and fixing it is what will get us hurt. Dominic's chest tightened so hard it hurt. Us? Yes, Gia said softly. She said us, like she already knew. Dominic stared at the street, mind racing. Evelyn had been careful. Evelyn had been scanning the sidewalks. Evelyn had been living smaller, quieter, like she was trying to disappear. Not because she didn't love him, because she did. And love near him came with shadows. Dominic's voice turned steel. Did she tell you who she was scared of? Gia exhaled. No. Dominic's eyes narrowed. But you think it's real? Gia didn't hesitate. I know it's real. Dominic ended the call with a quiet goodbye and stood there for a moment, breathing through a tight chest. Then he walked back to his car. He drove without music, without calls, without distractions, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him steady. He didn't go to his office. He went to the one person in his world who didn't deal in fear, only facts, his attorney. The man looked up when Dominic entered. Mr. Russo, this is unexpected. Dominic didn't sit. I need to know if my name is tied to anything that could touch Evelyn Carter. The attorney blinked. Your ex-wife? Dominic's eyes were cold. Answer. The attorney cleared his throat and stood nervous. There are several entities, holdings, properties, shells, legal structures. It would take time. Dominic leaned forward slightly. Start now. The attorney nodded rapidly and moved to his desk, pulling files, typing. Minutes passed. Dominic's patience was razor thin. Then the attorney froze. His face went pale. Dominic's stomach dropped. What? The attorney's eyes lifted to Dominic, wide and unsettled. There's a clause. Dominic's voice was low. What clause? The attorney swallowed. The divorce settlement, a confidentiality clause. It wasn't unusual, but what? Dominic snapped, and the sharpness in his voice made the attorney flinch. But it was triggered, the attorney said, voice shaking. 2 months ago. Dominic's blood went hot. Triggered by who? The attorney's hand trembled as he turned the laptop screen slightly. A third party requested verification of the clause through one of the entities connected to your name. Dominic stared at the screen like it was a gun pointed at Evelyn's door. A third party, Dominic said slowly. Who? The attorney hesitated. Dominic's voice went quieter, more dangerous. Say the name. The attorney swallowed hard, then read it off the screen. Dominic's phone slipped slightly in his hand. Because the name wasn't a rival boss. It wasn't a criminal. It was a woman's name. And Dominic knew it. Harper Lane. A name from his past that should have been buried, forgotten, harmless. A name Evelyn had never once mentioned. Dominic stood there, frozen, as one terrifying thought landed with perfect clarity. If Harper Lane had resurfaced, then Evelyn hadn't been hiding from strangers. She had been hiding from someone who knew exactly how to reach Dominic Russo. And now, somehow, she knew about the baby. Dominic didn't go to Evelyn. Not that day. Not the next. And it nearly tore him apart. Every instinct he had told him to move fast, to confront the problem, to cut it off before it grew teeth. Harper Lane's name burned in his head like a warning siren. A woman from his past, smart, patient, and dangerous in the quiet way. Someone who knew how his world worked without ever being officially part of it. But Evelyn had been clear. Don't show up again. So Dominic did the hardest thing a man like him could do. He waited. He shifted the battlefield inward instead of outward. Lawyers, paper trails, silent protections that didn't leave fingerprints. He stripped his name from dormant entities, rerouted holdings, froze accounts that no one had touched in years. He didn't ask questions yet. He prepared. And all the while, he thought about Evelyn. About the way her laugh had slipped out in the coffee shop like she hadn't meant to let it live. About how she stood straighter now, stronger, even while carrying the weight of something that should have been shared. 3 days passed. On the 4th, she came to him. Not in person. By accident. Dominic was leaving a low-profile restaurant just past noon, phone to his ear, when he saw her across the street. Evelyn stood outside a small medical office, one hand braced on her lower back, the other gripping a folded paper bag. Her face was pale, jaw clenched like she was riding out something uncomfortable. Dominic ended the call without a word. He didn't cross the street immediately. He didn't rush her. He waited until she looked up. Their eyes met. This time, she didn't freeze. She sighed, a deep, tired sound that carried more emotion than any argument. "Of course," she muttered, loud enough for him to hear as traffic paused between them. Dominic crossed when the light changed, slower than his instincts wanted, stopping a careful distance away. "Hi," he said. Evelyn looked at him like she was too exhausted to pretend indifference. "You didn't listen." "I did," Dominic replied. "I didn't come to you." Her eyes flicked around, then back to him. "Then why are you here?" Dominic held her gaze. "Because the city's not that big." She huffed a humorless laugh. "Tell that to fate." For a moment neither spoke. Then Evelyn's face tightened. She shifted her weight again, discomfort clear now. Dominic's voice softened. "Are you okay?" She hesitated. Just a beat too long. "It's nothing," she said. "Just long morning." Dominic glanced at the sign behind her. Prenatal care. Nothing dramatic. Everything intimate. His chest tightened. "Can I walk you?" he asked. Evelyn opened her mouth to refuse, then she stopped. Her shoulders dropped slightly like she'd lost a fight with herself. "Fine," she said, but only to the corner. They walked. The silence between them wasn't sharp this time. It was heavy, full of things unsaid. After half a block, Evelyn spoke. "You look tired." Dominic almost smiled. "You always notice that." "I notice patterns," she replied. "It's how I survived being married to you." He accepted the jab. "You were good at it." She glanced at him. "Still are." That surprised him. "Surviving me?" "No," she said quietly. "Reading you." They stopped at a crosswalk. Another one. Not the same as before, but close enough to make Dominic's chest ache. Evelyn hugged the paper bag closer to herself. Dominic waited until the light turned red again before he spoke. "I didn't come to ask for anything." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "That's new." "I came to say I know about Harper." Her steps slowed, then stopped. She didn't turn right away. When she did, her face was controlled, but her eyes were not. "How?" she asked. Dominic didn't dodge it. "My attorney." Evelyn exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding that breath for months. "Then you know why I didn't tell you." "I know you were protecting the baby," he said. "And yourself." "And you," she added softly. Dominic shook his head. "You don't protect me by disappearing." Evelyn's voice sharpened. "You don't protect me by staying." That landed between them like a fragile truth. Traffic moved. People passed. The city kept breathing. Dominic lowered his voice. "She doesn't get near you." Evelyn studied him. "That's not a promise you can keep without making noise." "I can keep it quietly," he said. "That's what scares me." Dominic stepped closer, not crowding, just enough that she could feel his presence. "Evelyn, look at me." She didn't want to. She did anyway. "I'm not here to take over your life," he said. "I'm here because I love you. And because I'm not letting you carry this alone anymore." Her lips parted. "You don't get to decide that." "I know," he said. "You do." She searched his face, looking for control, arrogance, the man she'd left. What she found instead unsettled her. Patience. "Why now?" she asked. Dominic didn't hesitate. "Because I almost lost you without realizing it." Her eyes filled. She blinked fast, angry at herself. "You already lost me once," she whispered. Dominic's voice broke just slightly. "I know." The light changed. They crossed together. At the corner, Evelyn stopped like before, but this time she didn't immediately step away. She looked at him, really looked. "I'm not weak," she said. "I know," Dominic replied. "I don't need saving." "I know." I won't be owned, managed, or hidden. Dominic's mouth curved faintly. You never were. Silence stretched. Then Evelyn did something unexpected. She reached out and placed Dominic's hand gently on her belly. Just for a second. Just long enough. Dominic froze. Warmth, movement, life. His breath hitched hard. Evelyn watched his face carefully, like she was measuring the man he was becoming. Then she took her hand back. You can come to the next appointment, she said quietly, but only if you don't bring the world with you. Dominic nodded, emotion thick in his throat. I won't. She stepped back. This doesn't mean we're anything. Dominic held her gaze. It means we're honest. Evelyn hesitated. Then she nodded once. As she walked away, Dominic stayed where he was, hand still warm where she'd placed it. For the first time since the divorce, he didn't feel like he was chasing her. He felt like she had opened a door. But somewhere deep in his gut, a warning remained, because Harper Lane wasn't a ghost. And honesty, real honesty, always came with a price. And Dominic knew one thing with certainty. If Evelyn was finally letting him back in, then whatever was coming next would test whether love was enough to survive the truth. Dominic arrived early, not because he was impatient, but because sitting still felt impossible. The medical office was quiet, tucked between a bakery and a small bookstore. Nothing about it screamed importance, yet to Dominic it felt like the center of the universe. He sat in his car for a full minute before getting out, breathing slowly, reminding himself of Evelyn's rules. No world. Just him. He walked in alone. The waiting room smelled faintly of clean linen and citrus. Soft music played from hidden speakers. A few women sat scattered across the chairs, some with partners, some alone, all wrapped in their own thoughts. Dominic chose a seat near the wall. He folded his hands, forced his shoulders to relax. Then the door opened. Evelyn stepped inside. She wore a soft gray dress today, loose but elegant, falling gently over her belly. Her hair was down, framing her face in waves that made something old and dangerous stir in his chest. Her eyes found him instantly. She stopped, not startled, not tense, just still. Dominic stood slowly, careful not to rush her. Hi. Evelyn studied him. You're early. I didn't want to be late. A pause, then quietly, thank you. They stood there, awkward and close, like strangers who remembered being lovers. Evelyn gestured toward the chairs. Sit, people will stare. Dominic almost smiled. They already are. She glanced around and sighed. You stand out. I try not to. That's new. They sat. For a few minutes neither spoke. Evelyn's hands rested on her belly, fingers interlaced. Dominic noticed how calm she seemed here, like this place had become a small pocket of safety for her. You didn't bring anyone, she said at last. Dominic met her eyes. I said I wouldn't. She nodded, as if ticking off an internal list. Good. A nurse called Evelyn's name. Evelyn stood, then hesitated, glancing at Dominic. You're coming, she said, not a question. Dominic stood immediately. Yes. The exam room was softly lit, walls painted a calming blue. Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed while the nurse went through routine questions. Dominic stayed quiet, present, hands clasped, listening. When the nurse stepped out, the room settled into a deeper silence. Evelyn swung her feet slightly, nervous energy surfacing. This is the part where you don't make jokes. Dominic raised a brow. I never joke. She snorted. Liar. The door opened again. The doctor entered, warm and professional, greeting Evelyn first, then nodding at Dominic. No questions, no assumptions. Dominic appreciated that. As Evelyn lay back and the exam began, Dominic stayed near her head, not touching, but close enough that she could feel him there. When the sound filled the room, a rapid, steady rhythm, Evelyn froze. Her breath caught. Dominic leaned closer without thinking. Is that? The doctor smiled. That's the heartbeat. Evelyn's eyes filled instantly. Dominic felt something inside him crack wide open. The sound was strong, insistent, alive. His chest tightened so hard he had to swallow. Evelyn turned her head toward him, tears slipping free now, unashamed. "It's real," she whispered. Dominic nodded, unable to speak. The doctor continued explaining things, weeks, progress, measurements, but Dominic barely heard her. All he could hear was that sound, hammering life into the room. When it was over, Evelyn sat up slowly, wiping her cheeks. She laughed softly at herself. "I told myself I wouldn't cry this time." Dominic finally found his voice. "You don't have to be strong here." Her eyes met his, searching. "You don't get to say that lightly." "I know," he said. "I mean it carefully." They left the office together. Outside, the air felt brighter, lighter. Evelyn walked a little slower now. Dominic matched her pace. "I didn't plan to let you hear that today," she admitted. "I'm glad you did," Dominic replied. She glanced at him. "That doesn't mean you get access to everything." "I know. A beat. But it means I'm not shutting you out," she added. Dominic stopped walking. Evelyn noticed and turned. "That matters," he said quietly. Her expression softened. "It scares me." "Me too." They stood there, facing each other on the sidewalk, the city moving around them. Evelyn broke the tension first. "I'm hungry." Dominic blinked, then smiled. "Of course you are." "There's a diner 2 blocks down," she said. "Nothing fancy." "Perfect." The diner was warm and loud, all chrome edges and cracked vinyl seats. They slid into a booth near the window. Evelyn studied the menu seriously. "I want pancakes." Dominic leaned back. "At noon?" "Yes." "With syrup?" "And bacon." He laughed quietly. "You're dangerous." She smiled, a real one. "You have no idea." As they waited for food, conversation came easier. Small things, harmless things. She told him about the bookstore near her apartment. He told her about a terrible attempt at cooking he'd made the week before. "You cooked?" she teased. "I burned water." She laughed, shaking her head. "You used to make fun of me for following recipes." "I miss that," he said before he could stop himself. Silence fell, not heavy, but thoughtful. Evelyn spoke carefully. "I miss parts of us, too." Hope stirred, cautious and fragile. Their food arrived. They ate. At one point, syrup dripped onto Evelyn's finger. She wiped it with a napkin, then paused, looking embarrassed. Dominic smiled softly. "Still messy." She rolled her eyes. "Still observant." After they paid, they stood outside again, lingering. "This doesn't mean we're back together," Evelyn said. "I know," Dominic replied. "But," she added, voice quieter, "it means I'm willing to see who you are now." Dominic held her gaze. "And who are you now?" She rested a hand on her belly. "Someone who won't disappear again." His chest tightened. "Neither will I." Evelyn studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "We'll see." She turned to leave, then paused. "Dominic?" "Yes." "Don't make me regret this." His answer was immediate. "I won't." She walked away. Dominic watched her go, heart full and restless. Because for the first time since the divorce, the future wasn't closed, but it wasn't safe either. And both of them knew opening the door again meant old truths would soon demand to be spoken. Dominic didn't call her that night. He wanted to, badly. He sat in the quiet of his penthouse with the city spread out below him, lights glittering like nothing could ever fall apart, and he stared at his phone until the screen went dark. He could picture Evelyn walking back to her apartment, one hand resting on her belly, the other gripping her keys like a weapon. He could picture her locking the door, leaning back against it, breathing out like she'd held herself together for hours. And he could picture her whispering to herself, "Don't get pulled in again." So Dominic did the opposite of what the old him would have done. He didn't chase. He prepared. He spent the next 2 days doing quiet work that didn't involve threats, broken doors, or people showing up uninvited. He sat with his attorney. He reviewed structures, clauses, names tied to names. He removed paths. He closed doors that never should have existed. And all the while, one thought kept pushing forward, louder than the rest. Evelyn didn't hide the pregnancy because she didn't want him. She hid it because she didn't want his world near her child. That truth didn't offend him. It humbled him. On the third day, Evelyn texted him first, just one line. Tomorrow, 10:30. Don't be late. Don't be dramatic. Dominic stared at the message like it was a miracle written in plain English. Then he typed back, I'll be there. I'll be normal. 3 dots appeared. Then Evelyn replied, You don't know how to be normal. Just be quiet. Dominic smiled to himself, a slow curve of warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. Quiet, he typed. Got it. The next morning, he arrived 10 minutes early again, because some habits were impossible to break. But this time, he didn't go inside immediately. He waited in the car until he saw Evelyn. She stepped out of a rideshare at the curb, hair pinned back, a soft scarf around her neck. She looked composed, but Dominic noticed the little things, how she paused before stepping onto the sidewalk, how her eyes scanned to the left before she moved, like she was checking for someone she didn't want to see. Dominic got out, slow and steady. Evelyn saw him and walked over, not smiling, but not distant either. Something in her face had shifted since the diner, less guarded, more tired, like she'd decided resisting him completely took too much energy. You're early, she said. I'm learning, Dominic replied. Evelyn's mouth twitched. No, you're obsessing. I can do both. That pulled a short laugh from her, quick and unwilling. Dominic held the door for her, and they went inside together. The appointment was routine. Blood pressure, questions, quick reassurances. Dominic stayed quiet like she asked. He listened. He watched. He tried not to look too stunned every time the doctor said something like, You're doing great, Evelyn. Because it made him want to say it too. Afterward, they walked out into the crisp air and the bright noise of the city. Evelyn exhaled. Okay. Dominic glanced at her. Okay, what? Okay, I'm hungry again, she admitted, like it was a confession. Dominic's eyes softened. Of course. Evelyn rolled her eyes. Don't say it like you're proud. I am proud, he said simply. She stopped walking. Dominic stopped too, immediately, like he'd crossed a line. Evelyn studied him. Of what? Dominic didn't flinch. Of you. Of how you're handling all of this. Evelyn's gaze dropped to her belly, then flicked back up, sharp with emotion she didn't want to show. You don't get to watch me suffer and then compliment me for surviving it. Dominic's chest tightened. I'm not complimenting your pain. I'm acknowledging your strength. Evelyn stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, quieter, Strength gets lonely. Dominic's voice dropped. Then let me be there. Evelyn's eyes searched his face, suspicious of tenderness. You want to be there because of the baby. Dominic didn't deny it. Yes. Evelyn lifted her chin. And because of me? Dominic's answer was immediate. Mostly because of you. That did it. Evelyn's composure cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a subtle shift in her breathing, like something inside her softened and frightened her at the same time. She turned away slightly, pretending to adjust her scarf. There's a place, she said, voice careful. A small Italian bakery. I go there sometimes. Dominic's mouth curved. Lead the way. The bakery was warm and smelled like butter and sugar. Evelyn ordered with the focus of a woman on a mission. 2 pastries, one for now, one for later, and a tea that the cashier promised was pregnancy-friendly, said like it was a sacred category. Dominic paid before Evelyn could. She glared at him. You don't have to. I want to, Dominic said. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. Dominic Russo, don't start buying your way back in. Dominic leaned closer, voice low enough that only she could hear. Evelyn Carter, I am not buying. I'm offering. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her cheeks warmed slightly. They sat at a small table near the window. Outside, the city moved in its loud, uncaring rhythm. Inside, it felt quieter, safer. Evelyn took a bite of the pastry, her eyes closed for half a second. Dominic watched her like he couldn't help it. "What?" she said, opening one eye. "You do that thing," Dominic murmured. Evelyn frowned. "What thing?" "You look like you forgive the world for existing when you taste sugar." Evelyn stared at him, then shook her head. "That's ridiculous." Dominic's mouth curved. "It's true." Evelyn sighed, but her lips twitched. "Stop staring at me." Dominic didn't look away. "Make me." Evelyn's gaze locked onto his, and the air between them changed. Charged, familiar, dangerous in the sweetest way. Dominic felt heat spread under his skin. He knew that look. He remembered it in bedrooms, in hallways, in quiet moments where neither of them wanted to admit how much they needed the other. Evelyn's voice dropped. "You're playing?" Dominic's eyes flicked to her mouth. "I'm starving." Evelyn swallowed. She didn't move away. For a second, Dominic saw it. The possibility. The door opening wider. Then Evelyn blinked and leaned back, forcing distance. "Don't." Dominic's jaw tightened. "I'm not trying to rush you." Evelyn's gaze softened again, but with sadness. "I don't trust myself." Dominic's voice went quiet. "Because you still want me." Evelyn didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence was the answer. Dominic's hand rested on the table, palm up, not reaching for her, just available. Evelyn stared at it like it was a trap. Then she placed her fingers in his palm. It wasn't a romantic gesture. It was small, simple, human. But it hit Dominic like a vow. His fingers closed gently around hers, careful, reverent. Evelyn's voice was a whisper. "If we do this, it has to be different." Dominic nodded. "It will be." Evelyn's eyes glistened. No secrets. Dominic held her gaze. No secrets. Evelyn's lips trembled slightly. She steadied herself. No disappearing. Dominic squeezed her fingers softly. Never again. Evelyn exhaled, and for the first time since the crosswalk, she looked like she could breathe. Then her phone buzzed. Evelyn's hand jerked slightly, almost dropping his. Her eyes flashed to the screen, and something cold moved through her face. Dominic noticed immediately. "What is it?" Evelyn's fingers tightened around the phone like it suddenly weighed too much. "Nothing." Dominic's voice stayed gentle but firm. "Evelyn." Evelyn's jaw set. She didn't want to share. He could see it. But she had just said no secrets. Slowly, she turned the phone so Dominic could see. The message wasn't from a number he recognized. It was from an unknown contact. One line. "You're glowing, Eve. Pregnancy looks good on you." Dominic's blood went cold. Evelyn's voice was tight. "That's why I didn't tell you." Dominic kept his face calm, because panic would make her regret trusting him. But inside, something sharp and controlled snapped into place. "Have you gotten messages like this before?" he asked, quietly. Evelyn's eyes flicked away. "A few." Dominic's jaw tightened. "When did they start?" Evelyn swallowed. "After the divorce." Dominic's hand stayed wrapped around hers, but he could feel her trembling now. Not fear exactly. Anger, exhaustion, the kind of tension that comes from being watched. Dominic lowered his voice even more. "Is it Harper?" Evelyn hesitated. That hesitation was all he needed. Evelyn's eyes shone. "I didn't want your attention on it." Dominic's gaze softened. "You thought ignoring it would make it go away." Evelyn shook her head, frustration flaring. "I thought if you didn't know, she wouldn't have leverage." Dominic's thumb stroked lightly over her knuckles. "Evelyn, she already has leverage if she's watching you." Evelyn's breath shook. "I know." Dominic forced himself to stay steady. "Did she ever threaten you directly?" Evelyn's lips pressed together. "No." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "That's worse." Evelyn looked at him. "How is that worse?" Dominic's voice was low. "Because she's trying to make you feel crazy. Like you're always being noticed but never enough to prove it. Evelyn's eyes filled. It makes me feel dirty, like my life isn't mine. Dominic's chest tightened painfully. He leaned forward slightly, keeping his voice soft, intimate. Your life is yours, and our child's life is ours to protect. Evelyn blinked. Our child. Dominic nodded. Yes. Evelyn stared at him, and in that stare was something tender and terrified. Dominic said carefully, I won't break your rules, but I need you to let me do one thing. Evelyn's voice was quiet. What? Dominic held her gaze. Let me make sure you're safe, without you seeing it, without it touching your day. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. That sounds like secrets. Dominic shook his head. Not secrets, boundaries. You don't need to carry the ugly parts. You need peace. Evelyn hesitated. Dominic waited. Finally, she whispered, If you bring chaos to my door, I'll shut you out forever. Dominic's voice was steady. I won't. Evelyn's breath released slowly. Okay. Dominic nodded once, like he'd just been handed something sacred. Evelyn's shoulders trembled slightly. Dominic stood, moved around the table and crouched beside her chair so he was lower than her, so she wouldn't feel cornered. He didn't touch her immediately. He asked with his eyes. Evelyn's gaze dropped to his mouth, then back to his eyes. Then she leaned forward and pressed her forehead gently to his. Dominic closed his eyes. His hands rose slowly to her waist, careful, respectful, like she was made of something fragile and fierce. Evelyn whispered, I hate that I still want you. Dominic's voice broke just slightly. Don't hate it. It was real. Evelyn swallowed. Is it still real? Dominic opened his eyes and met hers. More than ever. Evelyn's breath hitched. Then don't ruin it. Dominic's mouth hovered a breath from hers. Tell me to stop. Evelyn didn't. She kissed him. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't messy. It was slow, careful, intimate. Two people relearning each other in a public place while pretending the world didn't exist. Dominic's hand slid up to her cheek, thumb brushing softly as if he couldn't believe he was allowed. Evelyn pulled back first, breath shaky, eyes bright. Her voice was a whisper. We can't. Not yet. Dominic nodded, swallowing down everything he wanted. Okay. Evelyn sat back, pressing a hand to her chest like she was trying to steady her heart. Then her phone buzzed again. Another message. Evelyn's face went pale. Dominic didn't ask this time. He already knew. Evelyn turned the screen toward him. He still kisses like he owns you. Dominic's entire body went still. Because that wasn't a guess. That was confirmation. Someone had been watching them, right now, through the bakery window. Evelyn's voice trembled with fury. You see? Dominic's eyes lifted slowly, scanning the street outside, calm and lethal inside. And as his gaze moved across the sidewalk, he realized the most terrifying part wasn't Harper's obsession. It was how close she was willing to get. Because if she was bold enough to watch them kiss, then the next move wouldn't be words. It would be something meant to make Evelyn run again. Dominic didn't react the way Evelyn expected. He didn't curse. He didn't storm outside. He didn't start barking orders into a phone like a man about to turn the street into a scene. He simply went still. So still it frightened Evelyn more than anger would have. Because Dominic Russo going quiet was never harmless. Evelyn's fingers clenched around her phone. Say something. Dominic's eyes stayed on the window, scanning the sidewalk with a calm that looked almost casual to anyone watching. Finish your tea, he said. Evelyn blinked. What? Finish your tea, Dominic repeated, voice low. Breathe. Don't look around like prey. Evelyn's throat tightened. I am not prey. I know, Dominic said, finally turning his gaze back to her. His eyes were warm, steady. But whoever sent that wants you to feel like you are. Evelyn's breath shook. She watched us. Dominic reached across the table and took her hand again. Slow, deliberate. She wants a reaction. She wants fear. She wants you to run. Evelyn stared at him, anger and panic tangled in her chest. And what do you want? Dominic's thumb stroked her knuckles, gentle. I want you safe. I want you calm. I want you to leave here without giving her a single second of satisfaction. Evelyn's eyes stung. I don't know how to do that. Dominic leaned forward slightly, voice intimate. Yes, you do. You've been doing it for months. You're just tired. That word, tired, hit her hard because it was true. Evelyn swallowed, forcing herself to inhale slowly. She lifted her mug and took a sip, hands trembling only a little. Dominic's gaze softened with something like pride, and it made her want to scream and cry at the same time. He didn't deserve to be proud, but she also didn't hate having someone see her effort. When she set the mug down, Dominic stood. Okay? Evelyn's eyes widened. Okay, what? We leave, he said. Normal, quiet, together. Evelyn stood too, heart hammering. Dominic, I don't... He lifted a hand. Eyes on me. Evelyn obeyed, breathing shallowly. Dominic's voice dropped even lower, meant only for her. If you look around, you'll see 100 faces. Your brain will pick one and decide it's her, and you'll spiral. Don't give your brain that job. Evelyn's jaw tightened. What if I want to fight? Dominic's mouth curved faintly. Then fight by not giving her what she wants. He guided her toward the door without touching her waist, without wrapping her up like a possession. Just close, present, steady. They stepped outside. The street looked normal. Too normal. People passed with bags, coffee cups, earbuds. Cars rolled by. A woman laughed into her phone. Evelyn wanted to spin in circles and catch every eye. Dominic's hand slid into hers again, firm enough to ground her. Walk, he murmured. They walked. 1 block, 2. Evelyn's lungs burned like she'd been holding her breath for an hour. Finally, she whispered, How can she be this bold? Dominic's gaze stayed forward. Because you've been alone. Evelyn's stomach twisted. So it's my fault. Dominic stopped immediately and turned to face her, eyes sharp now. No. People flowed around them, but Dominic's focus narrowed to her face. It's not your fault, he said, controlled and clear. Do you understand me? Evelyn blinked, caught off guard by the intensity. Dominic's voice softened. She is choosing to invade your life. That's on her. You did what you had to do to survive. Evelyn's eyes shone. I didn't want to drag you into it. Dominic's thumb brushed her hand. You didn't drag me. I belong here. Evelyn swallowed hard. You didn't belong here when I begged. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Dominic didn't flinch. He closed his eyes for a second like he deserved the hit. Then he opened them and said quietly, I know. That simple admission stole the air from her chest. No defense, no excuses, no speeches. Just, I know. They kept walking. Dominic led her to his car, not the black sedan from before, but a plain gray SUV that looked like any other car on the street. Evelyn paused. This is yours? Dominic opened the passenger door. Today it is. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. You own a normal car. Dominic's mouth twitched. Don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my reputation. Despite everything, Evelyn let out a short laugh. It cracked the fear slightly. She got in. Dominic closed the door gently, then walked around and got behind the wheel. He didn't peel out. He didn't speed. He drove like a man taking someone precious home. Evelyn stared out the window, jaw tight. She knew we kissed. Dominic nodded once. Yes. Evelyn's voice trembled with rage now, not fear. That's disgusting. Dominic's hands tightened on the steering wheel. It is. A beat. Evelyn looked at him. What are you going to do? Dominic glanced at her, calm. I'm going to keep my promises. To you. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. That's not an answer. Dominic's jaw flexed. It's the only answer that matters. Evelyn stared at him, frustrated. Dominic. He cut her off gently. I'm not going to start a war. I'm not going to bring chaos to your door. I'm not going to make you regret letting me back in. Evelyn's voice softened, almost pleading. Then what? Dominic exhaled slowly. Then I'll handle it quietly. Evelyn's eyes flashed. Quietly sounds like secrets. Dominic glanced at her again. No, quietly sounds like you sleeping at night. Evelyn fell silent because she wanted that more than she wanted control. They reached her building. Dominic parked a little farther down, not right in front, as if to avoid turning her entrance into a spotlight. Evelyn's hand hovered over the door handle. She didn't move yet. Dominic waited. She finally whispered, "What if she keeps doing this?" Dominic's voice was steady. "Then I keep being here." Evelyn looked at him, eyes glossy. "You say that like it's simple." Dominic's gaze softened. "With you, it is." Evelyn's throat moved. "Stop." Dominic's brow lifted. "Stop what?" "Stop saying things that make me want you," she said, voice breaking. Dominic's chest tightened. He didn't smile. He didn't tease. He just said, "Then want me." Evelyn stared at him, breathing shallowly. Dominic's hand lifted slowly, not touching her yet. "May I?" Evelyn's eyes dropped to his mouth. Then she nodded barely. Dominic leaned in and kissed her again. Soft, slow, careful. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing lightly as if he was memorizing her face all over again. Evelyn kissed him back, a little more desperate this time, because she hated that fear had stolen so much from her. She wanted something that belonged to her. Dominic pulled back first, breathing hard, eyes dark with restraint. "I can't do this halfway," he murmured. Evelyn's voice was a whisper. "Neither can I." Dominic's gaze flicked to her belly, then back to her eyes. "Not in the car." Evelyn's breath caught. "Dominic." He didn't push. He grounded. "Tell me what you want." Evelyn swallowed. Her hands trembled slightly. "I want to feel normal again." Dominic's voice softened. "Then let me give you normal." Evelyn stared at him like she couldn't believe he could say that and mean it. Finally, she whispered, "Come upstairs, just today." Dominic's entire body went still. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "If you make a big deal out of it, I'll change my mind." Dominic swallowed, nodding once. "No big deal." They went up together. Evelyn unlocked her door, stepped inside first, then turned on the lights. The apartment was simple, warm, lived in. Soft throw blanket on the couch, a stack of books on the coffee table, a small plant by the window that looked like it was fighting for its life. Dominic glanced at it. "Is that plant okay?" Evelyn shut the door and leaned back against it. "It's dramatic. It wants attention." Dominic's mouth twitched. "So, it's you." Evelyn huffed a laugh, then winced slightly as she shifted her weight. Dominic's expression changed immediately. "Are you in pain?" Evelyn rolled her eyes. "No, just pressure." Dominic moved closer, careful. "Sit." Evelyn lifted a brow. "You're not my doctor." Dominic's gaze held hers. "No, I'm the father who's going to panic if you pretend you're fine when you're not." Evelyn hesitated, then sighed and walked to the couch, easing down. Dominic knelt in front of her, eyes level with her belly. He didn't touch it yet. He looked up at her. "Can I?" Evelyn's face softened. "Yes." Dominic's hand settled gently on her belly. Warmth flooded him. Love, fear, awe, all at once. Evelyn watched him closely. "You're thinking too much." Dominic exhaled a quiet laugh. "I'm trying not to." Evelyn reached out and brushed her fingers through his hair, a small intimate gesture that made Dominic's throat tighten. "You always do this," she whispered. "Do what?" "Act like feelings are a problem you can solve." Dominic looked up at her, eyes dark. "They are." Evelyn's smile was soft and sad. "No, Dominic, they're not a problem. They're the point." The words settled between them. Dominic rose slowly, sitting beside her. The space between their bodies was thin, electric. Evelyn's voice went quieter. "I used to sit on this couch and tell myself I didn't miss you." Dominic's gaze fixed on her mouth. And Evelyn swallowed. And I was lying. Dominic's hand slid to her waist, fingers gentle. Evelyn. She turned to face him fully. Her eyes were bright but steady now, filled with desire she wasn't hiding. Just hold me, she said. No fixing, no plans. Just hold me. Dominic pulled her into his arms, careful of her belly, cradling her like she was something sacred. Evelyn melted against him, and for the first time in months, her shoulders relaxed completely. They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing together. Then Evelyn shifted, tilting her face up. Dominic kissed her again, deeper now, still tender, but hungry in a way that made Evelyn's skin warm. His hand slid along her back, slow, respectful, making her sigh against his mouth. Evelyn's fingers curled into his shirt. "You smell the same," she whispered. Dominic's voice was rough. "So do you." Evelyn pulled back just enough to look at him. "Promise me something. Anything. If Harper tries to pull you back into being." "That man," she said carefully. "Don't let her." Dominic's jaw tightened. "I won't." Evelyn's eyes searched him. "You swear?" Dominic held her gaze. "I swear on you." "On the baby. On everything." Evelyn nodded slowly, like she needed to see it in his face. Then she leaned in again, kissing him with more confidence now. More permission. Dominic responded instantly, lifting her gently so she straddled his lap without pressing her weight on her belly. Evelyn gasped softly, fingers gripping his shoulders. Dominic's mouth moved to her jaw, then her neck, kissing there slowly, making her close her eyes. The sensation was warm and familiar and new all at once. Evelyn whispered, "We shouldn't." Dominic paused immediately, eyes snapping to hers. "Say stop, and I stop." Evelyn stared, breathless. Then she shook her head. "I don't want to stop. I'm scared of wanting you this much." Dominic's voice was low and steady. "Then let it be scary. I'm here." Evelyn's eyes filled again. She kissed him harder, like she was choosing him despite fear. Dominic stood, lifting her carefully, and carried her toward the bedroom. Evelyn's breath hitched. "Dominic." He looked at her. "Tell me if you're uncomfortable." "I'm not," she whispered. "I'm finally comfortable." He laid her down gently, hovering over her like a man who couldn't believe he was allowed. He kissed her again, slow and reverent, hands tracing her sides, her shoulders, the curve of her waist. Sensual but careful, never rough, never hurried. Evelyn's fingers slid into his hair. "I missed you," she confessed against his mouth. Dominic's voice broke. "I missed you like air." They moved together slowly, learning each other again with soft touches and quiet sounds, the kind of intimacy that didn't need words to be intense. Dominic made her feel wanted, not as a fantasy, not as a prize, but as a woman he loved and desired with his whole body. After they lay tangled in sheets, Dominic's arm around her, Evelyn's head resting against his chest. For a few minutes, everything felt peaceful, normal. Then Evelyn's phone buzzed from the nightstand. Evelyn's body stiffened instantly. Dominic felt it and tightened his hold. "Don't," he murmured. "Not tonight." Evelyn swallowed, staring at the glowing screen. Dominic reached over and flipped the phone face down without looking at it. "Tonight is ours." Evelyn's breath trembled. "What if it's important?" Dominic's voice was quiet, firm. "If it's important, it will still be important in the morning." Evelyn hesitated, then nodded, letting herself sink back into him. They lay there, breathing, trying to believe the night could protect them. Minutes later, another buzz, then another. Evelyn's chest tightened. She sat up slightly, unable to ignore it now. Dominic sat up too, jaw tight. "Evelyn." "I have to look," she whispered, eyes wide with dread. Dominic nodded once. "Okay, look. But you're not alone." Evelyn picked up the phone with shaking hands and turned the screen toward him. It wasn't a message. It was an email, a single attachment, and a subject line that made Evelyn's blood run cold. For the baby. Evelyn stared at it, breath caught in her throat. Dominic's face went still, controlled. Evelyn whispered, "Don't open it." Dominic's eyes didn't leave the screen. "You already know what it is." Evelyn's voice broke. "It's proof. She wants proof that she's close." Dominic took the phone gently from her hands. "Then we don't give her the satisfaction of watching you fall apart." Evelyn's eyes filled, panic rising. "Dominic, what if—" A sharp pain cut through her sentence. Evelyn gasped and grabbed her lower belly. Dominic's entire body snapped into focus. "Evelyn?" She sucked in a breath, eyes wide. It hurts." Dominic slid off the bed instantly, careful and fast. "Where? Tell me where." Evelyn's hands trembled over her belly. "Low, like pressure." Dominic's voice stayed calm, but his eyes were fierce. "Okay, breathe. I'm here." Evelyn tried to inhale, but another wave hit, and she cried out softly, gripping his arm. Dominic went pale. "Evelyn, are you having contractions?" Evelyn shook her head frantically. "It's too early." Dominic grabbed his phone, hands steady despite the fear in his eyes. "I'm calling." Evelyn gripped his wrist. No sirens, Dominic." Dominic's gaze locked on hers, voice low and absolute. "No sirens. Just help." Evelyn's breath shook. "Dominic." He brushed her hair back, gentler than anyone would believe. "Stay with me. Look at me." Evelyn's eyes were wet, terrified. "What if she did this? What if she—" Dominic cut her off softly. "Don't give her that power right now. Breathe, one breath at a time." Evelyn nodded, trying, tears slipping down her cheeks. Dominic pressed a kiss to her forehead, then lifted her carefully, wrapping her in a robe. "We're going to the hospital." Evelyn clung to him. "I'm scared." Dominic's voice broke just slightly. "Me too." He carried her out of the bedroom, the phone still glowing on the bed behind them, that subject line burning like a threat. And as Dominic moved toward the door with Evelyn in his arms, one thought hit him with brutal clarity. Harper didn't just want attention, she wanted control. And if Evelyn's pain was real labor, then Harper had picked the worst possible moment to prove how close she could get. Dominic drove like a man holding glass, not fast, not reckless, just controlled, every turn smooth, every stop gentle, his eyes flicking constantly between the road and Evelyn curled in the passenger seat, one hand gripping the door handle, the other pressed to her belly. "Breathe, Ev," he murmured, voice steady. "Look at me." Evelyn tried. Her eyes were wet, wide with fear. "It's too early," she whispered. Dominic's jaw tightened. "We don't decide that. The doctors do." Another wave hit. Evelyn gasped and curled forward. Dominic's heart lurched. Okay. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Just like that." Evelyn shook her head, tears slipping. "This is happening because of her." Dominic's voice went low, firm. "Not tonight. Tonight is about you and the baby." They pulled into the hospital entrance. Dominic parked in the closest spot he could find, threw the car into park, and was at her door in seconds. He scooped her up carefully, ignoring the looks from passers-by. A nurse rushed toward them with a wheelchair. "Pregnant patient?" she asked. "Yes," Dominic said. "Pain, pressure, possible contractions." Evelyn's fingers clamped around Dominic's sleeve. "No drama," she whispered through clenched teeth, still trying to control the world. Dominic bent close, voice gentle. "No drama, just help." They moved fast through bright hallways. Papers, questions. A bracelet snapped onto Evelyn's wrist. Dominic stayed by her side, answering what he could, letting Evelyn speak when she had strength. In triage, a monitor was strapped around her belly. The steady beat filled the room again, strong, insistent. Evelyn sobbed in relief. "He's okay?" The nurse smiled. "Heart rate looks good." Dominic exhaled like he'd been drowning. A doctor entered, calm, focused. "Let's see what's going on." Minutes felt like hours. Evelyn squeezed Dominic's hand until his knuckles went white. Finally, the doctor's expression softened. "You're not in labor," she said. What you're feeling is likely stress, dehydration, and uterine irritability. It can be painful, but it's not active labor. Evelyn's shoulders collapsed with relief. Dominic's eyes shut briefly. So he's okay. He's okay, the doctor confirmed. But you need to rest and reduce stress. Evelyn let out a shaky laugh that sounded like defeat. Reduce stress, she repeated. Sure. The doctor glanced between them, then lowered her voice. If something or someone is making you feel unsafe, you should tell us. We can help connect you to support. Evelyn's eyes flicked to Dominic, then away. I'm fine. Dominic didn't argue in front of the doctor. He just squeezed her hand, steady, present. After the doctor left, Evelyn lay back, exhausted. The fluorescent lights made her look paler than usual. Dominic brushed his thumb over her fingers. This is my fault, she whispered. Dominic's chest tightened. No. Evelyn's eyes glistened. I let you in, and now everything is... Dominic leaned in, voice low and unwavering. Evelyn, listen to me. You didn't break anything. You didn't invite her. You didn't cause this. Evelyn swallowed hard. Then why do I feel like I'm always one step behind? Dominic's gaze held hers. Because you've been alone. Evelyn's lips trembled. I didn't want you dragged into it. Dominic's expression softened. I'm not dragged. I'm choosing you. Tears slid down Evelyn's cheeks, silent and hot. Dominic caught them gently with his thumb. I'm scared, she admitted. I'm scared you'll go back to being that man. Dominic didn't blink. I won't. Evelyn searched his face, desperate for certainty. How can you promise that? Dominic exhaled slowly. Because I remember what it cost me the first time I chose pride over you. Evelyn's breathing steadied slightly. Dominic's eyes lowered to her belly, then back to her. I'm going to do this the right way. Evelyn's brows knit. What does that mean? Dominic's voice was quiet. It means tomorrow, we file for a protective order if we need to. It means we document everything. It means we don't play games. And it means you don't carry it alone. Evelyn flinched. That sounds like a lot. Dominic nodded. I'll carry the heavy parts. You carry the baby. That's the deal. A small laugh escaped Evelyn, shaky but real. You're bossy. Dominic's mouth curved. You married me anyway. Evelyn's smile faded into tenderness. And I left you. Dominic nodded once. And I deserved it. Silence stretched. Then Evelyn whispered, I don't want to hate you anymore. Dominic's throat tightened. Then don't. Evelyn stared at him for a long moment, then reached up and cupped his cheek. Her touch was warm, grounding. I still love you, she said softly, like confessing something dangerous. Dominic leaned into her palm. I never stopped. Evelyn's eyes filled again, but this time the tears looked like relief. Hours later, they were discharged with instructions: rest, hydration, follow-up. Dominic walked her out, one arm hovering behind her back, not pushing, not controlling, just ready. Back in her apartment, Dominic made tea, then stood helplessly in the small kitchen. Evelyn watched him. You don't know what to do in a normal kitchen. Dominic glanced at the kettle. I'm learning. Evelyn's mouth twitched. Sit. He sat. Evelyn lowered herself onto the couch with a sigh. Dominic handed her the tea like it was precious. She took a sip, then stared at her phone on the table, face tense. Dominic's gaze sharpened. We're not opening that attachment. Evelyn swallowed. But what if it's something important? Dominic's voice was calm. If it's important, it can be sent again through a lawyer. Evelyn looked at him, then nodded slowly. Dominic reached into his jacket and pulled out a small folder. Evelyn blinked. What is that? Dominic took a breath. Truth. The kind I should have given you a long time ago. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Dominic. He opened the folder and slid a document onto the table. Evelyn stared at it. Dominic's voice was steady but raw. Before the divorce was final, I put something in place. A trust. under your name. Not as control, as protection. If anything ever happened to me, or if my world tried to touch you, you and the baby would be covered. No strings. Evelyn's breath caught. You did that? Dominic nodded. I didn't tell you because you would have thought it was manipulation. Evelyn's eyes burned. You should have told me. I know, Dominic said quietly. That's why I'm telling you now. Evelyn looked down at her belly, hand resting there. When she looked back up, her voice trembled. Why, Dominic? Dominic's eyes held hers. Because even when I was losing you, I couldn't stand the thought of you unprotected. Evelyn swallowed hard. And Harper? Dominic's jaw tightened. Harper thought she could control me by controlling access to you. She can't. Evelyn's eyes searched his face. Are you sure? Dominic leaned forward, voice low and intimate. I'm sure because I'm done living a life where love is something I postpone. Evelyn's lips parted. She looked overwhelmed, then angry, then soft. You're impossible, she whispered. Dominic's mouth curved. You said that already. Evelyn laughed through tears. Then she reached for his hand and held it tightly. Stay, she said, one word. No pride, no armor. Dominic's chest tightened. Evelyn, stay, she repeated, firmer. Not just tonight. Stay with me, for real. Dominic swallowed hard, eyes shining. Yes. Evelyn's shoulders relaxed, like she'd been holding herself up for months without realizing it. She leaned into him, head against his shoulder. Dominic wrapped his arm around her, careful and warm. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, for the first time in a long time, Evelyn felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Safe. And when the baby shifted beneath her palm, Dominic lowered his head and kissed her temple, voice barely a whisper. We're going to be a family, he said. Evelyn closed her eyes, breathing him in. Don't ever leave again. Dominic held her tighter. Never. Her phone buzzed once, one last attempt. Dominic didn't look. Evelyn didn't flinch. She turned it face down herself, then laced her fingers with his, choosing peace, choosing him.